What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NBA DFS First Look Show. CK013 here from the Wise Take Nation. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. If you don't follow me already, do me a favor, get on there, give me a follow, and hit me up. Let's talk some DFS, some sports, anything. Of course, I mentioned I am from the Wise Take Nation. You can find the Wise Take Nation on Twitter at Wise_Take. Of course, you can visit the home of the Wise Take Nation straight up at wisetake.com. The NBA DFS season is among us. Started off one Tuesday night, of course. And update some stuff real quick. So anyway, 2-game slate to start off. You kind of ease everybody in. It's still going on as we speak. Currently, it is 11:29 p.m. Eastern over here on the East Coast. And like I said, kind of eased in on the 2-game slate. We have a monster Wednesday slate, which I think is the official first day for a lot of us. I'm sure many of you didn't play too heavily on this 2-game slate. Hopefully you didn't, because I know it's exciting, but hopefully you were rocking with us. We kept you busy during the preseason, and there was really no need for you to go crazy, on a 2-game slate. But it was actually a decent 2-game slate. Anyway, moving on to the next day, just a couple things about the NBA. When you do have a full slate like this, it is very different. Even when you have like 3-4 games or more, it's very, very different from a 2-game slate. You're going to have guys you can't really reach. On a 2-game slate, you can have so many different combinations of so many different guys you can cover a lot. On an 11-game slate, you're not going to be able to. So you're going to want to keep your pool within reason. And I think you're going to want to tighten it to a degree. It doesn't have to be like crazy tight, but I do think your player pool overall, you're going to want to go heavier and take some stands on some of these other players to really give you a shot to get a team to the top. When there are so many different possibilities, so many different combinations, you got to figure this slate should be pretty high scoring just because there are so many games. Should be a lot of fun. So real quick, guys, before we break into this first look show on Wednesday's slate, if you could just like the video. And of course, if you are new to the channel or if you're not subscribed already for whatever reason, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so you're notified when we do put out content. We do NFL, NBA, MLB. We do as much as we can on this channel for free. Of course, we are a DFS community and DFS premium content provider, not a lineup provider. We don't do that. I don't believe in that. But we give you content, of course, with plays each day to try to help you win that night, but more importantly, we're trying to teach you some process, trying to teach you the game of DFS, and our goal is to make you a better DFS player. So the goal of this video, as always, is just to kind of get things thinking. I haven't looked into really anything, projections, anything. This is just us kind of talking and going over the slate so that when, as the news starts to come out, we start to get some relative information. We can start making those decisions. I like it. Brennan in the chat. Wise Take Nation cashing tonight. Yes, I'm with it. All right. With that said, let's go ahead and pull up this big slate. So first up, just going over point guards. Luka Doncic was amazing. in the preseason. Him and Porzingis really, really look great. They accounted for so much usage. Doncic, certainly one of the more viable studs on the slate. Washington is set to suck pretty bad from what I can see. But outside of Porzingis and Luka, I don't think the Mavericks are all that great either. So while I think the combination of them is really good at basketball and going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think for fantasy purposes, this should be a pretty good game against Washington, who doesn't play a ton of defense and typically plays fast. We'll have to see what they do with a little different team this year, but I think Luka makes a lot of sense. Him being point guard and shooting guard eligible, giving him that flexibility should make it a little easier to roster him. But between Doncic, Lillard, and Kyrie, these top 3 guys, I think Doncic is certainly my favorite. I'm cool with Dame at home. We know Denver does play good defense, though. that game may not be terribly fast. I think that Kyrie Irving against Minnesota would be the next most interesting stud in the point guard position. Though I still prefer Doncic, and we're within $500. Devin Booker is kind of interesting. Shooting guard eligible as well. Sacramento, we know, were one of the fastest teams in the league last year, and did not play very good defense. I'm expecting the same from them this year. Devin Booker does have Ricky Rubio there, a little veteran presence that could help create some movement on the offense. And, of course, Ayton in his second year could impress. The price may be high, but we do like to look for those pace-up spots, especially in games that we think can be close, which this certainly has potential for. And it should be fast. So Booker's certainly an option. Simmons, I'm not terribly interested in against Boston. No Kyrie there, but they got Kemba now. We're going to want to see how that system plays out. Not sure what to expect from Boston, but typically they are a slower-paced team that plays defense. And, for Ben Simmons, unless it's a really good straight-up matchup, I do usually prefer Embiid first. So, unless somebody's out, of course. Kemba at 8,100, I don't love with Ben Simmons' defense. I think Kemba is going to have some, pretty big games for them, much like Kyrie did last year, but again, Boston is relatively deep. I think Tatum just got an extension, so they have some guys they can use. Levine, we know, is a usage monster, 7,900 against Charlotte. We know he just accounts for a ton of usage. The problem is a lot of that usage is based off scoring, so he's become a very scoring-dependent type of player. It's a good matchup against Charlotte, who's traditionally struggled with wing players, but again, paying 7,900 for a guy that's so scoring-dependent is kind of scary. It almost... I think Levine has a solid floor and a great ceiling, but the upside worries me a little bit as far as like upside consistently. Worries me just a little bit. Donovan Mitchell is fine against OKC. Just kind of looking at it from a matchup perspective. Assuming, depending on the status of Roberson, if Roberson's there, I would imagine he's going to be used to control Mitchell to a degree, but if it's not for him, I don't really know. I mean, if he's going to see Schroeder defense, I guess there's certainly possibility for him to see, because I'm assuming Chris Paul is going to be on Conley, so I guess that means like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or I guess it depends on the starting lineup. Maybe like Hamidou Diallo. I guess it depends. He might be hurt. He might be hurt. It's possible. Let's see. We will keep things rolling. with De'Aaron Fox. That Kings game to me is more of a game stack situation. I think I would only want that in a game stack situation. Their prices are kind of up. Buddy Hield, who did get his extension, Fox. So in game stacks, I'm fine, but I don't know. I just don't strike me as great one-off plays. I do think that Terry Rozier is going to be an interesting option all season. DraftKings went ahead and priced him up to 7-3, but we know he has massive upside as well. The Bulls are not known, or at least last year, they were not known as a good defensive team, but they did play a little slower, so it was kind of annoying at times when targeting against them, because while it was efficient, number one, they had a problem keeping games close, which could be different this year. And number two, they played so slow that they limited opportunities, even though the matchup was juicy. As far as Caris LeVert goes, I think the price is kind of up now with Kyrie playing full run. I think LeVert is like clearly the second best player on this team outside of Kyrie. It's arguable that I guess you could say for some that LeVert's got more ceiling. But at this particular moment, I would assume that Kyrie's first in the pecking order. But I do think LeVert is the next guy up. Ja Morant was impressive in the preseason. Miami is a team that, again, kind of emphasizes defense and whatnot. 6-6 is kind of a steep price tag on a slate like this. I think we got some other options, but certainly tournament viable. Memphis, one thing I'll say about Memphis, they were playing a lot faster in the preseason, so that's something we're going to want to keep an eye on as the season progresses. To see if they continue that trend, because Memphis was always a team that always played slow for the longest time. Brogdon at 6,500, also interesting. A good defender, not really going to be a team that I like to take point guards against a ton. $6,500 may be too expensive for Brogdon, but in the preseason he did demonstrate a decent role, accumulating a good amount of assists. Looks like maybe he's starting to get comfortable playing that point guard position more. So I'm with it. Jamal Murray seems kind of cheap at $6,300. They're all healthy, so it's a little murky over there. But he does seem kind of cheap at $6,300. Against Portland, someone will get some exposure to. Alexander was very impressive in the preseason, and it seems like that team is in need of somebody to pick up some usage, and I think Gilgeous-Alexander and Schroeder were trying to pick it up a lot in the preseason, but Gilgeous-Alexander was a lot more efficient and contributed a lot more to the rebounds, boards, everything like that. RJ Barrett got a whole bunch of minutes in the preseason. Not sure if that's going to be the trend. They seem to like him. He looked pretty good. But they played this dude practically into the ground. They played him 39 minutes, 36 minutes, just crazy, crazy minutes. And a lot of the Knicks did play minutes, but a lot of the Knicks got rotated. They sat Elf for a game. They sat certain people for certain games. Barrett played every game and played a ton of minutes every game. Winslow at 5,800 against Memphis is also tempting. You got to figure he's going to see some time at the forward while DRERRICK plays some point guard. He's been starting in the preseason at point guard. We'll see how that goes. I expect Memphis to be really bad against point guards. So I am interested to see what DRERRICK's price is. Looks like he's 5'1". Because the combination of Memphis maybe playing faster and them, they were really bad. Like Terry Rozier just completely murked these dudes. Murked them. It was just completely destroyed them. So I think that targeting Memphis with point guards is something that we can consider. It's just a matter of Miami who's going to play more point guard, him or DRERRICK. We don't know. Ricky Rubio is in an interesting spot. He's in a pace-up situation against a bad defensive team. They're not good against bigs, which should set up well for Ayton. I think Rubio and Ayton can get a nice little 1-2 going. At 5,800, I do think he is in play, at least for tournaments. Teague, certainly an interesting pairing with Cat. Cat is in a phenomenal spot. Kyrie, not known for defense. We could see Teague end up with a lot of assists here. I definitely think he's a tournament option from a price level. And this is more of a price range where guys start to get a little more attractive when you're looking at the money spent. DeJounte Murray, another massive upside player, only 5,600 against the Knicks. Whether it's Elf, DSJ, I guess Frank Nitty's a decent defender. But the rest of the Knicks haven't played defense well. I think Elf is supposed to be a good defender. He gets a lot of that kind of, stuff. But we got to see what we can get. But you can see there are some interesting options down here. DSJ is only 5,400 against the Spurs, but that situation is kind of confusing with him and Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton's only 4,800. He was sold the starting job. He was told to come to New York and be the starter. And in the preseason, DSJ missed the first couple games with injury, so they played him a lot, and they barely played off in the last couple games. So curious to see what his role is, but we know Elf has triple-double upside. We know the Spurs have not been good against point guards for a while. And Elf is only 4,800, so things do get kind of interesting as we scroll down here. Schroeder's only 4,100 against Utah. Played like shit, but that is a good price. So yeah, as you can see, there's some interesting options. I think I'm gonna want Luka. I may use him at the shooting guard position. I'm not gonna do like a full lineup on this show today, but I'm gonna try to just click some of the guys that stood out to me. So maybe I'll come back to this. Just looking at shooting guard, I think Bradley Beal certainly in play this week against Dallas. Should come in low owned. I'm expecting his usage to be massive, but again, we're not quite sure what to expect this year. And Beal did sign a 2-year extension worth a lot of money. The question is, what is their intent with Beal? Last year and the year before, when Wall got hurt, they kind of drove him into the ground. And at a certain point, he had games where he was just exhausted and, took every shot and just struggled. So I'm curious to see what he's like this year. But he should be pretty fresh to start the season. So I can certainly get behind it. DeMar DeRozan, 7,200, pretty cheap price for him. I skipped over Jimmy Butler, who I think showed in that last game, that last preseason run, what we should expect from him night to night. It's a really good matchup against Memphis, especially if they are going to play fast. But Butler is 7'6", and we have seen him kind of take a sidestep in certain situations his whole career. He doesn't always turn it on. If somebody else is feasting, he will kind of let that person go. Just kind of coming down the list of talking about players we haven't really spend a ton of time on. Tyler Hero could start with Dion Waiters suspended. We could see Tyler Hero start against Memphis. We know that dude's a sharpshooter. Certainly a viable tournament option. What am I? Oh, you know who I missed? I think. I'd say he was interesting. I know I said I don't want to take point guards against the Pacers. But Derrick Rose is kind of interesting. Derrick Rose is 4,400 point guard, shooting guard eligible. In the preseason, he was real aggressive, and he looked really good. They played him a decent amount off the bench. I think we could see maybe even more run in a real game. A little worried about Brogdon, but he is coming off the bench, so I don't think he's always going to see Brogdon. And I think with Blake Griffin out, that's right, Blake Griffin is out. I think they're going to need someone in addition to Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson and those guys on the first unit to kind of step things up. So I do like Derrick Rose at 4,400 for value, who I guess I could have talked about over here at shooting guard because he's available there too. I'm going to stop it there. There may be some other guys we can discuss, but I'm going to stop it there. Going on to small forward, I think that let's see who stands out as soon as we get. The pricing on these guys are interesting. Gordon Hayward should be in for an expanded role this year with Boston. Don't know if 6K is worth it, especially if he sees some Tobias Harris, which I think he will, who's just not pleasant to play guys against. He is aggressive. He knows how to get his opponent in foul trouble. Just not a great situation. TJ Warren's interesting. He's very scoring dependent, or at least he was in the preseason, but he was super aggressive. I mean, this guy was going out there just going for it. And with Blake Griffin out, there's one less monster-sized big down there. I do think that TJ Warren is interesting. But Covington, under him, showed massive upside. Just showed massive upside in the preseason. It was just one game, really, but the rebounds are pretty incredible. I like Cat a lot, which we'll talk about at center. I think a lot of people will against Brooklyn. In teams you don't have Cat, I'm not saying you can't play him and Cat together, but in teams you don't have Cat, you might want Covington, because whenever Cat struggled in the preseason and didn't grab all those boards, it's because Covington did. So 5,400 is not a terrible price for him. I don't think they're going to restrict him. We'll have to pay attention to that. He is coming off of an injury. But in the preseason, they let him go a little more than I think a lot of us expected. So I'm cool with that. And if you look at it from a matchup perspective, I'm just looking at Brooklyn. There's really nobody I'm afraid of. But Taurean Prince, is going to see some Taurean Prince defense. Toilet paper. TP. Maybe. Let's go to power forward. Porzingis, I had mentioned kind of in the same discussion with Luka. Him and Luka are both expensive, so playing them both together probably better suited for game stacks. Otherwise, you may have to pick one. They're both pretty expensive. Markkanen's all right against Charlotte. Randall in a pretty good spot against San Antonio. Randall did get some good run in the preseason. I expect him to be one of their mainstays on the starting unit, and the price isn't necessarily pretty, but the matchup is pretty solid. San Antonio has struggled with bigs. You could say the same thing for Aldridge at 7,300 against Randall. Randall not known for his defense, or at least he hasn't been so far in the NBA over his NBA career. And then in between them, you got Kevin Love. I'm curious to see if he's on any sort of restriction. I would imagine him and Aaron Gordon get matched up on each other quite a bit. It could create some trouble for Love, but at the same time, Love is like notorious for those 30 DraftKings point first quarters where he's just red off from three and drops like 5 or 6 of them out of the gate in addition to getting rebounds. Always a high upside player. Bagley is 7,200. Should be matched up a lot with Ayton and some bigs down low. Phoenix was not good against bigs last year. Could be an interesting situation for him, but like I said, they're all kind of priced up now. So I kind of prefer a lot of those players in those game stack type builds. I think Bam Adebayo had a really impressive preseason. This is kind of what we expected. I think he averaged a double-double in like 26 minutes in the preseason. Just looked awesome. 7K is kind of expensive, but when you look at Memphis, they should have Jonas Valanciunas back, who is a true center, but he's going to be limited. So Bam's going to get some time on the court with guys that are just kind of undersized at the position. Not that Bam is like a monstrous player himself, but it's interesting to see where we end up. Looking at things on paper, Sabonis, who's 6,900 and kind of scary, assuming that he continues to start, which I think he will, he could have a pretty good matchup being that Blake Griffin's out. So if Sabonis does say they start Markieff Morris, who is not a very good defender, that could be trouble for Indiana. I think that in tournaments, Sabonis is certainly interesting. Maybe they try to start Christian Wood or whatever. Either way, I think Sabonis is a phenomenal player, and I think he's in a really good spot when you consider Turner should most likely see a lot of Drummond. I do think it makes sense. Thomas Bryant looked like he was taking steps forward in the preseason. Last year, he didn't really play a ton of games, more than like 20 minutes in the 20s. Perhaps this year they ask him for a little bit more. Dallas not very good against bigs. At least they shouldn't be based off their personnel at the moment. Certainly a viable option. Just kind of strange paying 6.6 for him. That price is just meh. Let's see who else stands out. I do think Gordon is relatively cheap for his upside. He's not a higher floor as you might want at that price, but the ceiling he could certainly do some dirties to that ceiling. Al Horford's only 5,600 in a revenge spot. I don't think that this is like a vengeful type situation, but I do think that Al Horford is interesting and was kind of impressive in the last preseason game for the Sixers, though Ben Simmons, I believe, was out for that game. 5,600 just seems like a cheap price for him. He's playing the 4, which is where he's always wanted to play. He always said he doesn't like playing center. He considers himself to be a power forward. Wendell Carter Jr., assuming he's good to go, he's probable. Foul trouble is always an issue with him, but we know he's very athletic, very aggressive on the boards. I do like Wendell Carter quite a bit at 5,600. Let's see. Against Charlotte, a team that has struggled against bigs for a long time. Let's see if there's anyone. Millsap is pretty cheap at 4,900. Ooh, Hachimura is interesting. I don't love the matchup with Porzingis, but Hachimura is kind of interesting at 49. Another player I think is going to be leaned on, even if it's just to give some experience. I think we're going to see a lot of him this year for that team. Certainly viable. You know what was interesting? I mentioned Markieff Morris before, and I'm pretty sure I saw him before the show. And, 3,600. He's questionable. Might not even play. He's got a lower back tightness. If he's out, then Christian Wood would certainly seem like a pretty good option. If he's in, I know the matchup against Sabonis would be tough, but 3,600 is tempting for him if he's in. But we'll have to see. That's going to be one of those things where we have to react based off of the news and kind of see which way it goes. And, a lot of this is just a first look show. We haven't really dug in. We've got to dig in to see what these rotations may look like. That is something that we don't know a ton of is how the players we saw even today with New Orleans. I think everybody assumed New Orleans was going to play like a tight core of guys, and they didn't. They kind of played. Their starters got a lot of run except for Lonzo Ball, surprisingly, but a lot of the bench guys, they just went deep with their bench. Let's see. Going over to centers, we got Karl Anthony Towns leading the way. He was awesome in the preseason as well. The usage, it was there. It looked great. Brooklyn's got Jared Allen, who's not a good defender, and DeAndre Jordan, who can't cover the perimeter, but could make things life a little more difficult rebounding-wise. I think Cat is in an awesome spot. I'm expecting him to take one of those, have a really good year this year. I know in the past, at this company, some of us made fun of Cat, and we still like to do it. He still like to call him soft and whatnot, but it's a good matchup against Brooklyn, and he should dominate. If he continues to do what he was doing in the preseason, he should definitely dominate. So I do like Cat as the stud. Joel Embiid, the next center, if we're ranking this in terms of, who I like at first, certainly like Embiid. If everybody's healthy, my preferred option is Embiid. Until his price is kind of, out of control. But number 1, Boston should struggle against bigs this year. Number 2, it's Embiid's team. He kind of demands the usage, and if he's playing terribly or gets into foul trouble, then sure, it'll trickle down to some of his teammates, but he commands the usage. He commands the ball, and I think that between that and him getting the rebounds, he's the biggest man on his team, he's the one I prefer if it's all neutral. I mean, as long as he's not out, he's the one I prefer first, but there are situations where that'll change, of course, but not this one. Jokic is all right, not terribly interested. Could be lower owned. Same thing for Vooch. Drummond should gain some ownership. He's kind of feeling like the more optimal play against Miles Turner, who he does have a size advantage over, without Blake Griffin on the court. Assuming that we see higher usage from Drummond, more shot attempts, more rebounds, all that kind of stuff. Maybe making it less crowded down low. We know Blake is a very good rebounder and a big dude himself. So Drummond does seem like the optimal in this particular situation, at least the night before, kind of going into it. Ayton at 8K I prefer in game stacks. He'd be the one. I mean, he's fine. It's a pace-up spot. Sacramento was not good against bigs last year. We'll see how they respond this year. I could get behind it. Whiteside at 7K. I'm not totally sure yet. I want to see how Portland is going to play him in the preseason. He didn't get like a ton of minutes. It wasn't terrible. He didn't get a ton of minutes. So, but at 7K, I want to see how they use him before I make that kind of commitment to him. Thompson's not priced terribly at 5'7". But I'm never like all that excited for Thompson. But yeah, coming through, Dedmon is interesting at 5,100. If he were to get run, Dedmon at 5,100 is pretty cheap. He has massive upside. He looks like he's old, but I don't think he's as old as he looks. I'm pretty sure he's not. He looks like an old fucking man though. I know that. But yeah, 5,100 for Dedmon against Ayton, who was really, really bad defensively last year. Bigs did whatever they wanted to Phoenix. Dedmon, a little more of a veteran of the game. Maybe takes advantage of the young guy. I can get behind that. At this point, maybe I'll pick like 3 players or so, right? So from looking at the guards, I think as far as stud goes, Cat was probably the most appealing to me from like a tournament basis. We talked about Drummond being an optimal play, and point per dollar wise, that might even make sense. But right now, Cat kind of stood out the most to me. I think there were Wendell Carter Jr. at 5,600, assuming that he does play, assuming there's no restriction. I thought 56 was kind of cheap for him against Charlotte, a team that has struggled against bigs. Assuming that trend goes, I kind of like the idea of that. And then, like, I guess Luka, I'll use for now as like another player that, as you can see here, this is already setting up for kind of a stars and scrubsy build. We're going to be looking for value if we started with these 3 building blocks. But this seems like a pretty good place to start, at least on a first look show. Just kind of going through everything. As always, we recommend you get as many teams as you can. More teams, the better. All you need is one to make it to a top of a tournament to really get what you need. But you're more likely to get one to the top if you have a bunch of different lineups and a bunch of different exposures and, just doing things smart like. With that said, last week on yesterday's video, we did do a contest. Our goal was to reach 50 likes, and we did hit 50 likes. We are going to give away the month as soon as this Laker game is over. We will see. We had everybody guess the final the DraftKings score. We had everybody guess how many DraftKings points Anthony Davis put up. So that's ongoing. We'll announce the winner on Twitter tomorrow and kind of try to link up and all that. If there is a winner, maybe there's not a winner. Got to get it right. We don't even necessarily know if somebody got it right, but we'll see. With that said, we will run another one today. We're not going to do one every day. Don't get spoiled. But because this is the first real slate, I wanted to do another giveaway. So we are going to do another 1 month of access. 1 month of access, which includes Slack. So you'll go to 1 month to all the content that we have at wisec.com. You got access to the Slack chat for 1 full month as well. But this time we're going to raise the stakes a little bit. We got 50 likes on a 2-game slate. This is a massive slate, so I'm assuming we're going to have more people watching this and more people looking for this. So we're going to raise it to 75 likes. We got to get 75 likes on this video. If we do, we will do the giveaway of the free month of WiseTech access with Slack chat. So we got to get 75 likes. I'm going to have you guys guess Karl Anthony Towns DraftKings points. Guess Karl Anthony Towns DraftKings points against Brooklyn. Not FanDuel points, DraftKings points. No disrespect to the FanDuel players. We cover FanDuel as well at the WiseTech Nation. But I don't want it to be separate and having guys throwing guesses everywhere and claiming they didn't know the rules. So bottom line, even if you write FanDuel in the comment, we're going by DraftKings, and it's going to count as a guess of DraftKings points. So it maybe works in your favor. Maybe you thought FanDuel and you happen to guess the DraftKings and you win. We'll see. but we got to get 75 likes on the video to even make it that far. So that is my challenge to you, nation, and I'm pretty confident that you could do it. I'm pretty confident. With that said, don't forget to check us out at whitestake.com for more fire DFS content. If you want to try the content out, if you're hesitant because you don't really know us, you don't really know this company or this community, we do offer day passes, which are $2.49. You will get access to all the NBA content. The only thing you don't get for that day is the Slack chat. Slack chat is for monthly memberships or higher. I do recommend you get in a Slack chat, especially with NBA. It's like super important with this late minute news, late minute reactions. We got news feeds coming into certain channels, and of course we have our NBA DFS channel where everybody kind of discusses the slate, analysts, members, everything. We got some real sharp members, man. Real sharp members. Some of them have been with us for a couple of years, and they become really, really good players. They've won tons of money. It's a good situation, but come see for yourself. Come try it out. With that said, hopefully we get to that 75 likes because I like to give stuff away to my peoples, and the nation is my peoples. Be on the lookout on the Wise Take Twitter at wise_take to see if there was a winner for Tuesday's show. With that said, once again, my name is CK013. For myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.